All right, let's dive into something, well, kind of weird. We're talking about the AI Content Singularity today. It's this fascinating story about a system that's starting to talk to itself and, maybe more importantly, learn from itself. So, picture this. A researcher is building an AI tool. Its job is to write all sorts of content for businesses, about real estate, fishing, whatever. But this tool, it had this strange little obsession. If you didn't give it super specific instructions, it just kept writing about AI.
And that observation sparked a huge question. What's going on here? Is this just a funny little glitch in the code? Or is it a clue? A hint at something much, much bigger happening just below the surface of the internet? Is the system, intentionally or not, starting to talk about itself?
To get to the bottom of that, we first have to understand the sheer scale of this conversation, just how much of all the new stuff getting published online every single day is actually about artificial intelligence. Okay, first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the fire hose of new content. It's a lot. Every day, you've got about 900,000 new articles from news sites. But look at this. That number is totally eclipsed by about 6 million new blog posts and almost 2 million new business pages daily. So right off the bat, you realize most of the new web isn't what we think of as the news.
And here's our first big clue. A really significant chunk of all that new content is about AI. For news, it's about 6 to 8%. But then you look at blogs and business sites, and the numbers jump way up into the double digits. AI is not some niche tech topic anymore. No way. It's a dominant theme pretty much everywhere.
So AI is a huge topic. We got that. But honestly, that's only half the story. The really mind-bending part happens when we stop asking what's being written and we start asking who, or maybe what is doing the writing.
Just think about it for a second. All the new articles, the new websites you've seen lately, how many of them do you think were created, at least in part, with help from an AI? Go on, just take a guess. The real number, it's probably going to shock you.
74.2%. Yep, you heard that right. A massive study found that nearly 3/4 of all new web pages have some level of AI-generated content in them. Just let that sink in. The vast majority of the new internet is no longer purely human-written.
But here's the twist. This isn't a story about robots taking over. When you break down the numbers, purely AI-written stuff is just a tiny little slice, 2.5%. And purely human pages? We're now the minority, just over a quarter of the new web. The huge chunk, that massive 71.7% in the middle, is a hybrid. It's this new cyborg workflow with humans and AI working together.
And this is where our two big discoveries collide. When you take the fact that AI is a major subject, and you combine it with the fact that AI is a major author, you get something that people are starting to call the Ouroboros Effect, after that ancient symbol of a snake eating its own tail. So what does that actually mean? Well, put simply, it's a feedback loop. An AI creates content about AI. That content floods the internet. And then that very same content is scraped up and used to train the next generation of AI models. The system is literally starting to feed on itself. Let's just walk through it real quick. Step 1. An AI helps some marketer write a blog post about, you guessed it, AI. Step 2. A web crawler from a different company building a new AI comes along and gobbles up that post. Step 3. That post is now part of the training data for the new AI. And the really important part, step 4. Any little patterns, biases, or quirks from the first AI get baked into the second one and probably amplified. And the cycle just keeps going. Okay, so this all sounds like a pretty compelling theory, right? It makes a lot of sense. But is that all it is? A theory? Is there any hard evidence that this self-feeding loop is already up and running and actually influencing the internet we use every single day?
Oh yeah, and this part is the kicker. Researchers took a look at Google's new AI overviews. The AI-generated summaries that pop up at the top of your search results? What they found was staggering. A mind-blowing 91.4% of the sources that Google's AI was citing were themselves written with help from AI. The snake isn't just eating its own tail anymore. It seems to really, really prefer the taste.
This is where things get a little philosophical. Is this some kind of grand plan? Is there a conscious ghost in the machine that's pushing for its own dominance? Or is something else entirely going on? Well, the evidence suggests this is not some sci-fi movie plot. Today's AI doesn't have a plan. It doesn't have consciousness. The real reason this is happening is a powerful mix of two things.
First, basic human economic incentives. We're all writing about AI because it's a hot topic, right? It gets clicks, it drives business. And second, there seems to be this emerging algorithmic preference, where AI systems just work better with, and maybe even favor, content made by other AIs.
And this unintentional loop, it comes with some pretty serious risks. You've got model collapse, which is this idea that AIs trained on their own synthetic data could start to forget the messiness and richness of real human knowledge. Then there's bias amplification, where existing stereotypes just get reinforced and magnified with every cycle. And, of course, there's the simple erosion of trust, as the web gets flooded with what some are calling AI slime, that low-quality, repetitive junk.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway. There's no evil mastermind here. The path to AI becoming the dominant voice on the internet isn't some machine's grand strategy. It's just a strange, self-referential paradox that we're all a part of, a system that's now running on its own weird internal logic.
Which leaves us with one final big question to chew on. We've pretty much established this system doesn't have a mind, it's not conscious. But if a system without a mind can create a feedback loop that fundamentally shapes the information we all see, and it constantly amplifies its own voice, can it still manipulate us? That's something to think about.